Alright, let's talk about episode 5. I don't even know where to start, because this episode, it's strange. It's intense, emotional, and honestly a little frustrating all at once. My Hero Academia Season 8, or what they're calling the final season, has been delivering some insane moments lately. We had Bakugo's last stand, All for One's downfall, the emotional buildup, and then comes episode 5, History's Worst Villain. You'd think with that title it's going to be pure chaos, right? Shigaraki destroying everything, Deku losing control, the world trembling, that kind of energy. But instead, it's quieter, slower, more talk than action. And that's what makes it so interesting and a bit divisive. So the episode picks up right after the madness from the previous two. Bakugo's fight against All for One had everyone holding their breath. Animation was god tier, pacing was tight, everything hit hard. So going into this one, the hype was sky high. Deku versus Shigaraki, the final showdown that the whole story has been building toward. And yet, Bone Studio went in a different direction. Instead of a non-stop brawl, we got something else. Something heavier. From the first few minutes, you can tell the vibe is off, and not in a bad way. The battlefield looks drained. The dust hasn't even settled from Bakugo's fight, and already we're thrown into this eerie calm. You see Deku staring down Shigaraki, both of them barely holding themselves together. The camera lingers, the sound fades, and it's just those two. No flashy soundtrack, no long speeches yet, just quiet tension. The kind that feels like everything could explode in a second. But here's where it gets complicated. Instead of immediately diving into pure fighting, the episode talks a lot. Deku and Shigaraki spend most of it facing each other, but not in constant motion. It's about their ideals, their pain, their views on humanity. And that's where fans are split. Some loved the dialogue, the emotion, the meaning behind it all. Others just wanted fists flying. And honestly, I'm kind of torn too. Because, let's be real, when you see Deku versus Shigaraki, you expect one of the craziest fights in anime history. These two have been destined to clash since Season 1. Deku, the boy who dreamed of saving people with a smile. Shigaraki, the boy abandoned by society and consumed by hatred. Two sides of the same coin. So yeah, part of me wanted the screen to explode with energy. But instead, what we got was a conversation between monsters and martyrs. And honestly, it worked more than I expected. Deku's portrayal here is beautiful. You can say what you want about him being naive, too soft, or too idealistic, but this episode reminds us what kind of hero he truly is. The world is telling him to kill Shigaraki. Even the One for All users are screaming inside his head, begging him to end it before it's too late. But Deku? He refuses. He looks at Shigaraki, and instead of seeing a villain, he sees a scared child, Tenko Shimura, the boy who never got saved. And that's classic My Hero Academia. It's always been about empathy, not just strength. Deku doesn't want to defeat Shigaraki. He wants to save him. And that's the kind of heroism that hits differently. Because he knows this kid's story. He knows the neglect, the pain, the moment when his family turned to dust in his hands. It's impossible not to feel the weight of that when Deku reaches out to him. There's even this haunting moment when Shigaraki, mid-fight, says he's not human. You can hear the hatred in his voice, but beneath that is this deep sadness. Like he's trying to convince himself of it. He doesn't want to be saved. He wants to end everything. And yet, Deku keeps standing there, refusing to let go. He's bleeding, exhausted, his body barely holding up after everything that's happened. But that small spark, the one that says, "I won't give up on you," it's still there. That's when the visuals start to take over. Bones went crazy with the animation, even if there wasn't a ton of action. The close-ups, the lighting, the contrast between Deku's bright green energy and Shigaraki's decaying red aura. Everything looks stunning. You can feel the chaos in their power, even when they're not punching each other every second. And then we get flashbacks. Glimpses of Tenko's childhood, the tragedy that shaped him, that tiny boy crying behind the cracks of his own mind. Those scenes hit hard. You're reminded that Shigaraki wasn't born evil. He was abandoned, neglected, and left to rot in a broken system that only cared about pro-heroes and media appearances. All Might couldn't save him. Nobody could. And now, Deku is trying to break that cycle. This is where Star and Stripe's vision comes in. All Might sees her spirit, showing him the crack in Shigaraki's core. A literal fracture in the villain's heart. Inside that monster is still the little boy Tenko, trapped and screaming. That's powerful storytelling. It's tragic, poetic even, because Deku's the only one who believes that small boy can still be saved. Everyone else thinks it's over. And here's where I'll say something a little controversial. This episode made me realize something. Shigaraki isn't the real worst villain. He's the symptom. The worst villain might actually be the system itself, the society that allowed him to become what he is. That's what My Hero Academia has been saying all along. Heroes aren't gods. They're people trapped in a flawed world that rewards image over compassion. Shigaraki was a product of that neglect. So was Dabi. So were a lot of others. But okay, let's talk about pacing because yeah, it's slow. You can feel it. The fight doesn't flow like Bakugo's. There's a lot of talking and sometimes it does drag a bit. There's a scene where the One for All users are literally debating inside Deku's mind, like a council meeting during a war. And I'll be honest, it's kind of jarring. You've got En and Kudu arguing about plans, trying to guide Deku through the battle, while Shigaraki's just waiting. It's one of those shouldn't someone be dead by now moments. That's where episode 5 stumbles a little. The tension stays, but the urgency drops. Too many info dumps, too many inner dialogues. You can tell the anime is trying to adapt a lot of dense material from the manga, but it ends up feeling cramped. Still, I'll give credit, Bones carried it with the visuals. Even when the pacing slows, you can't look away from how beautiful it all looks. The movement, the camera angles, the aura effects, everything is cinematic. And speaking of visuals, let's talk about Carnage Mode. The final few minutes of the episode? Absolutely insane. Deku's face changes. His eyes go sharp. His aura bursts into this dark, chaotic energy. And suddenly, you realize he's not just fighting Shigaraki. He's fighting the darkness inside himself. This new mode feels raw, primal, like he's tapping into something beyond One for All's control. It's the perfect ending shot. Deku floating midair, his power swirling around him, the sky cracked and red. You just know the next episode's going to be wild. But emotionally, the best part of this episode isn't that final shot. It's what it says about Deku. Even after everything, after losing friends, bleeding out, watching the world fall apart, he still believes saving someone like Shigaraki is worth it. It's crazy. It's reckless. But it's him. That's what being a hero means in My Hero Academia. Not killing evil, but believing it can be healed, even if it destroys you in the process. Now, does that make this episode perfect? No. The dialogue-heavy pacing is going to bother some fans. I get that. I felt it too at moments, like I wanted more impact, more fight choreography. But at the same time, I can't be mad at an episode that's this emotionally rich. It's like they traded the fists for philosophy, and I respect that choice. Because this battle isn't just physical. It's spiritual. It's about two broken kids trying to prove whose pain matters more. When you really think about it, Deku and Shigaraki are reflections. Both grew up chasing heroes. Both were failed by adults. Both inherited legacies they never asked for. The only difference is that one had someone reach out and the other didn't. And that's what this whole fight is about. By the time the credits roll, you're left with mixed feelings, not because the episode was bad, but because it's heavy. It's emotionally draining. You're not cheering, you're thinking. You're replaying every word they said, every image of young Tenko crying, every time Deku hesitated before throwing another punch. The title History's Worst Villain isn't about Shigaraki being evil, it's about how far humanity fell to create him. And yeah, I'll say it, this episode may not be as entertaining as episode 4, but it's important. It's the emotional reset before the storm, the calm before Deku's real breaking point, and the last shot, that Carnage Mode Deku, floating above the battlefield, eyes glowing with fury and compassion at the same time. That's the image that'll stick with me. That's My Hero Academia in one frame. Power, pain, and hope tangled together. So, let's talk about that ending because it's not just a cool moment. It's a message. When Deku enters what fans are calling Carnage Mode, it's more than a power-up. It's a reflection of everything he's been through. This isn't the same kid from season 1 who used to cry before every fight. This is a boy who's carried the guilt of losing friends, the fear of failing a dying mentor, and the weight of saving an entire generation. You can see that in the animation. The lines on his face are sharper, the colors around him darker. He's still Deku, but he's becoming something else, something wild. That's what makes it scary and beautiful at the same time. Because this is what happens when pure hope gets cornered. It breaks a little. And right here, Bones Studio absolutely nailed the symbolism. Remember how All Might once told him, "A hero's smile saves hearts?" Well, this Deku isn't smiling anymore. His version of saving people now comes with blood and desperation. You can tell he's walking a fine line between the hero he wants to be and the monster he fears becoming. That's why this fight is so emotional. It's not about who's stronger, it's about who breaks first. Shigaraki is taunting him the whole time, saying things like, "You can't save everyone, you'll end up like me." And that hits hard, because for the first time, Deku isn't sure if he's wrong. You can see it in his eyes, the doubt, the rage, the exhaustion. He wants to save Shigaraki, but he also wants this nightmare to end. And those two feelings don't mix well. Then we cut back inside his head, the one for all users. They're still arguing, still divided, and saying they need to use everything even if it destroys Deku. Kudu's warning him that mercy won't work this time. You can feel the tension between their ideals and Deku's own beliefs. It's like a council of ghosts, and even they can't agree on what being a hero means anymore. And that's when Deku does something wild. He ignores them. He literally pushes their voices aside, like, "Enough." That's huge, because for so long, he's been following their advice, listening to every word they said. But here, he's deciding for himself. He's saying, "No, I'll fight my way. My story isn't about killing villains. It's about saving people, even if it hurts." That moment right there, that's the mark of a true hero. Not because it's flashy, but because it's personal. Now let's go back to Shigaraki, or I should say Tenko Shimura, because that's who this episode really reveals. History's worst villain isn't a name he earned. It's a title forced on him. And when you start looking at the episode from his point of view, it becomes even sadder. We see flashes of his childhood again. His home, his family, that horrible moment when everything turned to dust. Those cracks across the screen when he remembers it? That's not just style, it's metaphor. His mind is literally fractured. He's living between Tenko and Shigaraki, between victim and monster. And then there's that haunting scene, the one where All Might sees Star and Stripe's vision. She shows him the crack inside Shigaraki's soul. That visual, the idea that there's still a boy inside, trapped behind layers of pain, is one of the best storytelling choices this season. It's not just saying there's good in everyone. It's showing that trauma doesn't erase who you were. It just buries it so deep that nobody remembers it's still there. And that's what Deku's trying to reach. The part of Shigaraki that's still Tenko. The part that cried for help and never got an answer. Even the one for all users see it. They call it a foolish mission. But they can't deny the truth. Deku's compassion is the only thing different about him. All Might had power. Bakugo had pride. Deku? He has empathy, and that's what makes him dangerous. Because that empathy, that refusal to kill, is what turns this whole battle upside down. It's not about good versus evil anymore. It's about understanding. Now, I have to talk about how much this episode leans on emotion instead of action. And I get it. For some fans, that's frustrating. You want punches, explosions, screaming matches. But this episode is like a chess game. Every word between Deku and Shigaraki feels like a move. Every stare, every hesitation, it's all psychological. And if you really think about it, that's what makes it dangerous. Shigaraki doesn't just want to kill Deku. He wants to break him. Mentally, spiritually, everything. He's saying, "You think you can save me? Try it. See where that gets you." And that's what makes the scene where Deku finally strikes with Delaware Smash so satisfying. It's not because it's flashy. It's because of what it represents. He's not fighting to destroy. He's fighting to connect. Each hit isn't "I hate you." It's "I won't let you fall deeper." That's insane. It's like fighting someone while begging them to hold on. And somehow, Deku's power starts syncing with his emotions. That's when Carnage mode goes wild. The air shakes, the ground splits, his aura changes color again. You see pieces of one for all merging, twisting. And then the visuals just explode. Colors blending, smoke rising, sparks flying. It's chaos, but it's beautiful chaos. Then we cut to the civilians watching from afar. The look on their faces says it all. They can't even tell who the hero is anymore. And that's such a powerful moment. The line between savior and destroyer blurs completely. At this point, the episode starts layering meaning under meaning. The title, History's Worst Villain, keeps echoing in your head. Who really deserves that title? Is it Shigaraki, who was born out of pain? Is it all for one, who corrupted that pain for his own gain? Or is it the world that ignored it until it was too late? That's what this episode asks. And the best part? It doesn't give an answer. It just lets you sit there with the question, watching two broken souls tear each other apart in the name of two different dreams. Even All Might gets his quiet moment. When he sees Star and Stripe in his vision, you can tell he finally understands what Deku's trying to do. The mentor becomes the student for once. He sees that being the symbol of peace was never about smiling for cameras. It was about believing that no one is beyond saving. And that realization hits like a punch in the chest. Because if you've followed All Might since Season 1, you know he's been carrying guilt for not saving Tenko. This vision, this connection between Deku's fight and All Might's failure, ties the whole story together. It's poetic. Then comes the closing minutes, easily some of the best visual storytelling Bones has ever done. The camera zooms in on Deku's eyes. You see fire and tears at the same time. He whispers something, we don't even hear it clearly, but you can feel it's for Tenko. Maybe it's, I'm not giving up on you. Maybe it's, you're still human. And then, silence. Shigaraki looks shaken. For the first time, his expression cracks. Literally, the screen fractures like glass. For a moment, the audience gets a glimpse inside. The small, scared boy curled up in the dark. That's when I realized something. Deku might actually win this fight without killing anyone. Not by overpowering Shigaraki, but by reaching that broken piece of Tenko's soul. And that's So My Hero Academia. It's what separates this story from every other shonen battle anime. The fights aren't about dominance. They're about redemption. The episode ends with Deku hovering midair, his body surrounded by energy. He's shaking, blood dripping from his arms, but his eyes are still full of that same stubborn light. And the music, man, that final piano note, it just lingers. You feel it. You know this is only the beginning of something darker. Then it cuts to black. To be continued. And I swear, I just sat there in silence for a few seconds. Not because I was disappointed, but because I was processing. So yeah, episode 5 might not have been the flashiest. It wasn't non-stop punches or epic team combos, but it was deep. It was emotional. It showed us the heart of My Hero Academia, the belief that even monsters were once children who needed saving. And honestly, I respect Bones for taking that risk. They could have easily made this episode another explosion fest. But instead, they slowed it down. They gave us meaning. They made us think. And when you watch Deku standing against all odds, refusing to become a killer, you realize this is what true heroism looks like. I'll be real. I miss the fast pace of episodes 3 and 4. But episode 5 had something else. Soul. It's the quiet storm before the real one hits. And judging from that final scene, Deku's Carnage mode is going to change everything in episode 6. So yeah, that's my take. History's Worst Villain might not be the most explosive episode, but it's one of the most meaningful ones. Now, the second half of episode 5 takes a strange turn, one that's quieter but heavier. You can feel the tension build not through punches or explosions, but through hesitation. Deku stands there, fists trembling, heart pounding, and you just know what's running through his mind. He's fighting Shigaraki, sure, but deep down he's fighting himself. Fighting that voice that says, end this. Stop him before he hurts anyone else. But Deku's heart doesn't work that way. It never did. When Shigaraki starts breaking through the rubble, his eyes aren't those of a monster anymore. They look almost lost. That's when the flashbacks kick in, short, raw glimpses of Tenko Shimura's childhood. You see the cracks forming, literally and emotionally. The way Bones animated those brief moments was chilling. There's one shot, Tenko crying, a faint crack spreading across the screen, that hit me hard. It's like the show's saying, you're not just watching a villain, you're watching what happens when the world fails a child. And Deku feels that too. You can tell. Every time he looks at Shigaraki, there's pity in his eyes, not hate. That's what makes this episode so special. It's not about heroes and villains anymore. It's about two broken people standing on opposite sides of fate. One still believes in saving people. The other gave up on being saved a long time ago. Now, let's talk about that one for all Inner-World scene again because wow, that's where the writing hit its emotional high point. The other users, En, Kudo, Nana, even All Might's Shadow, they're all arguing about strategy. They see this as a war. But Deku? He's sitting in silence, listening, processing. You can almost see the gears turning in his head. And when he finally speaks, it's soft but powerful. I want to save him. It's insane. Everyone else thinks he's naive. But that's Deku's magic. His compassion is his quirk. It's what separates him from every other hero who came before. He's not trying to destroy evil. He's trying to heal it. Meanwhile, Shigaraki's voice cuts through all that emotion. I'm not human, he says. That line sent chills down my spine. It's such a loaded moment. It's him accepting the monster inside. The decay, the hatred, the pain, everything that made him who he is. But at the same time, you can sense he's lying to himself. Deep down, he wants to be human again, but doesn't know how. And that's where the brilliance of this episode lies. It's psychological. You're not watching a battle. You're watching a conversation between two souls. One screaming for help, the other refusing to give up. Then we see All Might's vision of Star and Stripe, and that moment just ties everything together. She appears like a guiding light, showing him a crack, literally a crack, inside Shigaraki's core. There's still a boy trapped in there, crying, waiting. The symbolic and beautiful. The way Bones handled that animation was top tier. The lighting shifts, colors fade, everything feels dreamlike. It's like hope trying to push through despair. But let's be real, for all that emotional buildup, the pacing here felt strange. There were moments where I thought, come on, someone throw a punch already. The dialogue stretched longer than it needed to. Not bad dialogue, just too much of it. It's one of those rare times where you wish they had trimmed 3 minutes of talking and given us 30 more seconds of actual combat. That said, when the action does hit, it's clean. Deku uses Delaware Smash, and for a brief second, you remember why he's called a prodigy. The speed, the impact, the camera angle, Bones still knows how to make a moment land. But then, instead of following through, we go right back to the inner monologues. It's not bad. It's just not what you expect after the insane All-for-One versus Bakugo fight. That battle was pure chaos, this one's more philosophical. And honestly, I get it. This is Deku's final test. Not a test of strength, but of spirit. He's already mastered one for all physically. Now he has to master what it means. That's why episode 5 feels slower. It's building the emotional groundwork for what's coming. You can sense it, the calm before the real storm. Because when that storm hits, it's not going to be about quirks. It's going to be about everything Deku stands for. As the episode closes, Deku enters carnage mode, and holy hell, that shot. His face half-shadowed, eyes blazing, hair whipping around. You can feel the shift. He's done playing defense. Done talking. That's the Deku we've been waiting for, the one who finally decides to fight not just with power, but with purpose. The sound design helps too. The rumble in the background, the faint heartbeat, the echo of All Might's theme. It all builds up to that final frame. You can tell Bones is setting the stage for something massive in episode 6. And I can't lie. Even though episode 5 felt slower, it stuck with me more than most. Because it reminded me what My Hero Academia is about. Not just epic fights or flashy quirks. It's about empathy. It's about pain. It's about the one kid who refused to stop believing that even the worst person deserves one last chance. When the credits rolled, I didn't feel hyped. I felt heavy, reflective, the kind of quiet that comes after watching something that hits close to the heart. Because Deku isn't fighting Shigaraki to win, he's fighting him to understand. You know what really stuck with me after finishing this episode? It's not the fight itself. It's what the fight represents. Because when you strip away the explosions, the quirks, the animation, what's left is one simple truth. Deku is trying to save the boy who became his worst enemy. That's what makes history's worst villain such an ironic title. Yeah, Shigaraki might be the most dangerous person alive. But when you see him here, he doesn't feel like a monster. He feels like a tragedy. Someone who was abandoned, broken, and reshaped into something evil by a system that didn't care. And that's where My Hero Academia goes deeper than most anime. It's not about good guys beat bad guys. It's about the cost of being a hero in a world that creates villains. When Deku says he wants to save him, it's not just some cliché hero line. It's him declaring that he refuses to let the system decide who deserves saving. It's him rejecting everything society told him about what a hero should be. Because the truth is, every hero before him, even All Might, failed Tenko Shimura. And now Deku's standing there, trying to fix something that was never his fault. And that's where the emotion hits hardest. He's not doing it because it's the right thing. He's doing it because he feels it. He sees the child under all that hatred. He sees the same loneliness he once felt. The difference is Deku had All Might. Tenko had no one. That's the heartbreaking contrast this episode builds around. The flashbacks of young Tenko crying? Those weren't just sad moments. They were mirrors, showing Deku what could have been if he didn't have someone reach out to him back then. That's why Deku's empathy isn't weakness. It's strength. He's fighting to prove that pain doesn't have to turn into hate. Then there's the inner one for all council. This is something fans overlook. Those scenes are more than strategy meetings. They're moral debates. Each former user represents a different philosophy about heroism. And Kudo, Nana, they're all shaped by their era, by the kind of world they lived in. But Deku? He's trying to rewrite that entire legacy. He's not just inheriting power. He's changing its purpose. He's turning One for All from a weapon into a bridge. When All Might sees Star and Stripe and that crack in Shigaraki's heart, that's when it clicks. The message isn't defeat the villain. It's find the human inside him. That single vision explains the entire episode's pacing. The slower dialogue, the introspective tone, it's all deliberate. The anime is making us feel Deku's hesitation. It's forcing us to stop and think, would I still try to save someone like Shigaraki? And honestly, most of us wouldn't. Most of us would say, he's too far gone. But that's the whole point. Deku refuses to give up on anyone. Even someone who killed his mentor, his friends, destroyed his city. He still says, there's a boy in there worth saving. That's what makes him a true hero. Now, let's talk about the visuals one last time because Bones went all out here. The animation may not have been non-stop action, but the attention to emotion was incredible. Every close-up, every flicker of movement, every color shift. It all spoke louder than any fight could. When Deku activates Carnage mode, you can see how much the emotional weight has pushed him to that edge. His face half-lit, hair whipping, eyes wide. It's not rage, it's resolve. That final frame before the credits? That's not a cliffhanger. That's a statement. Deku's done doubting. He's accepted that saving Shigaraki might destroy him, but he's going to try anyway. And that's the beauty of My Hero Academia's final season. It's not about the end of a story. It's about the end of innocence. The moment a hero realizes that saving people isn't about glory or recognition. It's about pain, sacrifice, and choosing compassion even when it hurts. I think what also stands out here is how self-aware the writing has become. The show knows fans expected a massive showdown after Bakugo's battle. Could have easily given us that, but instead it slowed down, forced us to sit with the tension, forced us to look inside Shigaraki instead of just watching him burn everything around him. It's a risk, and honestly, it pays off emotionally. Even if not everyone will like it, there's also this subtle undertone about the failure of heroes. The way All Might is shown in visions now, powerless, distant. It's like he's the ghost of a broken dream, and that dream now lives through Deku. It's not about being the symbol of peace anymore. It's about being the symbol of empathy. By the end of the episode, I didn't feel like cheering. I felt drained, but in a good way, like I just watched the emotional midpoint of a long journey. You can feel it. This is where Deku starts changing. Not just in strength, but in belief. Because the next episode is not going to be just another fight. It's going to be the fight for Shigaraki's soul. That's what this whole setup is leading toward. So yeah, maybe episode 5 didn't have the raw action we wanted. But it gave us something better, a deep look into what makes a hero human. It reminded us why Deku became the main character in the first place. Not because he's the strongest, but because he's the one who still cries for the person trying to kill him. And that, to me, is the heart of My Hero Academia.